Today we're decorating a super fun rainbow tie-dye cake using my viral tie-dye cake technique. Hi there foodie friends, my name is Carly and welcome back to my channel Adventures in Yum. First we're mixing our colors. For this cake I wanted a more pastel rainbow, so I'm going to add just a tiny bit of food gel color. If you prefer a saturated rainbow, add extra food gel color. I personally love to use these Wilton food gel colors with my Swiss Spring buttercream, as well as utilizing a hand blender or immersion blender to mix the colors. Ever since I saw this tip from another creator, I've used it to easily create vibrant buttercream colors without having to add a ton of color. Once we've mixed our 6 colors, we're adding them to individual piping bags and cutting the tip off the bags to create a small opening. Keep in mind that we don't want the opening to be too big because it will pipe too much buttercream at once. Next, we're preparing our acetate sheets. These are thin sheets of plastic used in various dessert applications, and I prefer to use this over parchment paper or wax paper because it has more structure and it's easier to transfer to the side of a cake. We want to figure out the circumference of the cake and then cut an acetate sheet long enough to wrap around that cake with a little extra space. The cake I'm using today is an 8-inch cake, so we want the acetate sheet to be at least 25 inches long. I like to add about 1 to 2 or even 3 inches to account for the space the buttercream will take up. For this cake, we cut our acetate sheet to measure about 27 to 28 inches. Then we divide this long acetate sheet into 3 pieces. Decorating the acetate sheets in separate pieces will make it more manageable. Finally, if the acetate sheet curls up like mine was doing here, we weigh down the sides with something like these butter knives. Now that our acetate sheets are ready, we start with one of our buttercream filled piping bags in the middle and pipe a spiral pattern. We want to make sure that the spiral isn't too tight because this cake has 6 total colors. First, I used purple, and then I decided to pipe yellow next because we can pipe that directly in the middle of the purple swirl with enough room for 2 colors on each side of that yellow spiral. We then fill in the rest of the space with blue, green, orange, and pink. We can add more of whatever color is needed, we just need to make sure that all 6 colors will be seen when we scrape down the cake. I also like to add a second layer on top to make sure that the buttercream layer will be thick enough. Next, we're using some kind of thin stick tool like this metal cake tester to blend the colors. We want to start in the middle and follow the spiral pattern while moving the stick back and forth to slightly blend the colors. I personally like to do this part 2 times, followed by using a slightly thicker stick tool to blend the colors even more for a larger cake like this. I found that this coffee stopper works really well. Just make sure to turn it to the side so that it's using the thinner side to blend, not the wider circle part. We repeat this a second time just like we did before. Carefully tap the acetate sheet on the counter to help release air bubbles and fill in tiny gaps. This will make the counter a bit messy, but that's okay, we can clean it up later. Once our acetate sheet is prepped with the buttercream tie-dye pattern, we're adding it to the side of a crumb-coated cake that's been chilled in the fridge. We make sure that the bottom of the acetate sheet is right on the bottom of the cake and press the acetate sheet onto the side of the cake. We're using a cake scraper to further press the buttercream onto the side, but we're not trying to squeeze or squish the buttercream because that would mess up the pattern. However, we want to make sure that we're applying just enough pressure to make sure the buttercream really will stick. We repeat this process with each panel of the acetate sheets until all sides of the cake are covered. If there's overlap like you see here, we can use our cake scraper to help press the buttercream to the cake and use the scraper to smooth the buttercream. Before we place the cake in the fridge or freezer, we pipe a spiral pattern on top just like we did with the acetate sheets. After blending the colors just like we did before, we place a circular piece of parchment paper on top and press down to make it nice and flat. We're then chilling this cake in the freezer for about 15 to 20 minutes or in the refrigerator for at least 30 minutes until the buttercream is nice and solid. Before we finish decorating this cake, if you're enjoying this video, then please make sure to hit that like button, click subscribe, and ring that bell to be notified about my latest video. Now we're removing the acetate sheets and then heating our cake scraper to smooth the sides of the cake. I personally like to use my kitchen torch to heat the cake scraper. Just make sure that you have something to protect your hand from that heat, just like I did with this folded paper towel. You keep scraping the cake and cleaning off the scraper in between. To get a really sharp edge on top of the cake, we take the chilled cake and a warmed paring knife and carefully cut the excess off the top and then use a scraper to remove excess buttercream as well. You may still have some spots that didn't get filled in before when tapping the acetate sheets on the counter. Don't worry because you can easily use your piping bags to fill it in with buttercream colors. After filling in all those little pockets with buttercream, use an offset spatula to work the buttercream into those grooves. Then simply chill the cake once more and then continue with scraping and smoothing the cake. We can either leave the cake like this or we can add a buttercream border to the top and bottom of the cake. Here I used a Wilton piping tip 199 to add a white border because I wanted to make the colors pop, as well as some spring pastel nonpareil sprinkles to give the border a hint of light and bright colors. And here's the completed cake. This technique has come so far since I first started playing around with it, and I love how it's turned out. There are so many fun ways to use this tie-dye buttercream transfer technique, but this may just be one of my top favorite color combinations so far. What color combination would you choose? Let me know in those comments below, what do you think of this rainbow tie-dye cake? If you're interested in checking out some of the products I used in today's video, then please make sure to check out that video description below for some of their Amazon links. Thank you so much for joining me today, foodie friends. I'll see you next time for another yummy adventure.